All right. Welcome to House of Champions. YouTube friends, drop in your comments and questions in that chat and make sure you smash the like and subscribe buttons as we preview the Group B games ahead of Matchday 3 of the World Cup kickoffs. We'll also talk a little bit about what just happened in Group A. In the house tonight, we got Michael Lahoud and Jonathan Johnson with us. Fabrizio Romano will be joining us a little bit later on in the show to discuss everything that's going on in the transfer world. But let me check in with my boys. Michael Lahoud, how you doing, man?
It's a good day. It's a beautiful morning. Africa unite. Africa well represented. Cannot be happier for Senegal.
JJ, you got a night off last night, and I'm hearing you're refreshed and ready to rock and roll.
I'm indeed. No, I had a nice non-footballing evening. I wasn't wading into the controversy surrounding Cristiano Ronaldo, or should I say the latest controversy. I was enjoying the smooth tunes of Phoenix instead, which was a welcome break actually during this manic World Cup, and looking forward to getting into today's action with you guys right now.
Let's start with it, JJ. We'll begin with Group A and what just happened there. Mike, we'll come to you first because Senegal, obviously pride of Africa right now with a massive victory over Ecuador. Many people were tipping Ecuador after their first two-game performances to be the winners in this game. Fortunately for me, I put my money on Senegal, and my, oh my, they got the job done. It was a spectacular finish from Koulibaly in the end to make it 2-1.
Yeah, this was a game that from the start, from the onset, Senegal put out their stalls. They were the aggressors. I was actually shocked at some of the changes that Ecuador made. No Mendes, his partnership with Moises Caicedo has been a good one in the first two games, but you could see the miss in that. I didn't even know Moises Caicedo was on the field because of how aggressive Senegal was. Their midfield, the way they matched up, I thought they took out the Ecuadorian midfield. Alan Franco and Carlos Grayso were not the right players. I thought Ecuador should have put in Jose Cifuentes, and you saw a bit more of the quality when he came on the field. They did get a goal once he came on the field to get back in the game. But Senegal, what they did well, the movement of two players in particular, Bouladdia, some of those runs he made off the shoulders of the two center backs, and Ismaila Sarr, this guy was a handful for them for 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had to spend more of my time watching the Dutch game against Qatar than the Senegalese one, but I tried my best to keep it balanced. And I mean, I'm happy for Senegal. I mean, I think many people were very pessimistic about their chances once Sadio Mane was ruled out. I certainly was, but also I think as well, Ecuador. It really, I mean, there was that turning moment where Ecuador got themselves back into it, and then Senegal immediately, managed to get the second goal. And I think, once something like that happens, really, really kills the other team. As for the Dutch against Qatar, I think that was the final nail in what's been a very, very disappointing tournament for Qatar on the pitch. They really go out with a whimper. They set up defensively, didn't look that impressive at all. Had a few chances, but, the Dutch, I mean, were in second gear. They never really needed to get out, into third. Cody Gakpo, really, really impressive. And I'm sure we're going to dig into him a little bit more with Fabrizio when he comes on. But, really, I'm feeling quite happy about my predictions so far because I did call Netherlands topping the group with Senegal finishing second. I'm not so confident that my Group B is going to work out. I did say England, Wales as the top two. We'll see what happens there later. But so far, so good, for me in Group A. And I have to say, I think many people are really down on this Dutch side, and I can understand that in many ways because they're perhaps not as explosive as Dutch teams in the past, but they are very pragmatic under Louis van Gaal. And I think there's been some really underrated performers as well. You've got 2 clean sheets for Noppert, who's barely registered at international level before this tournament, and also Davy Claesson as well. Got himself a goal. He's got 2 assists so far in this tournament, so an underrated performer for me as well. But obviously the main man being Gakpo, and great to see Memphis Depay on the pitch as well.
I'm glad you mentioned Memphis Depay because I think you start to see what this Dutch team could be. Memphis Depay involved with both goals. He was the architect for the first goal. Yes, Klaassen gets his hand on the assist into Cody Gakpo, but it was Memphis who drifted out wide. Him at full speed, him at full fitness. He was their leading goal scorer in World Cup qualification, and he is that X factor for this Dutch team and for this Netherlands team getting better as this tournament goes on. That's what you want. You don't want to peak in the first game. You don't want to peak in the second game. It's getting out of the group stages, winning your group, and now hitting the ground running. And I think they will be that team that becomes that sort of X factor in this tournament as they get better.
Well, that wraps up Group A for us. If you want to listen to more of what we have to offer on Group A and the games that have just taken place, please join in at 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll have a big review of what just happened today and all of the action. But we want to turn our attention right now, after we just witnessed the Netherlands and Senegal going through to the knockout stages, to Group B. And that's where England are topping the group right now, with Iran in second place on 3 points, USA on the 2 points, with Wales, unfortunately for JJ, bottom with the 1 point. USA take on Iran, win and you're in for USA. They need to win the game. Iran only need a draw plus England not to lose to go through. Wales, they need an absolute miracle. And England, they just need to make sure that they don't suffer a heavy loss to go through in this game. JJ, I'll start with you. We begin with USA against Iran because it's a massive game, obviously, for the United States of America. But what about Iran going into this game? There's been a lot of political nonsense from press conferences and journalists going into this game. We also saw a little bit of, I would say, not very nice from the United States social media team dropping the Republic of Islam logo on the Iran flag, and a little bit of nonsense going into the game. Instead of focusing on football, where maybe Iran are, the USA boys have been put under a bit of pressure. So who do you favor in this game, and what do you think about Iran's chances?
I mean, it's a really interesting matchup, and yeah, obviously a lot of sort of the pre-match controversy is a little bit unfortunate, given sort of the way that it's come about. But I think there was always going to be tension around the game when England faced Iran, when the States faced Iran in particular, and it's come to pass. I mean, let's not forget as well, there was massive focus on Iran in the lead up to the tournament because of the political situation back home, and I think it comes at a really interesting time from what we've seen on the pitch. The USMNT have been a lot more solid than many people expected, myself included, certainly against England. I do think that when they saw the Wales result, losing to Iran, USMNT were probably kicking themselves that they didn't hold on for that win, because obviously that will put them in a much stronger situation. But I think they'll feel confident that they can beat this Iranian side. But Iran, in that game against Wales, certainly, the more that the match grew on, they really came into their own and started to show what we knew they were capable of, throughout this tournament. Obviously, losing, when you take a heavy blowout loss like they did in the opening game against England, it's always going to be difficult to recover from that. But I felt that they showed real character, and if Iran do fall here, at least they can go with their heads held high because of the way they gave themselves a fighting chance coming into that second match. I would probably favor the USMNT slightly, going into this matchup, but I do think it's going to be a tight one, and Iran definitely have the quality to hurt the USMNT, because the US would kill to have some of those attacking options.
Well, one player in particular for Iran that they would take overnight, and if before kickoff, if there's any rule change that they could have to get Mehdi Taremi in their team, this guy has been the spearhead of their attack. 2 goals against England in a game that without him, it probably could have gotten worse. He was that difference maker in the second half. And that second half that they played, I think that set them up and was a trampoline and the catalyst for how they came out against Wales. When they're on the front foot, when they go and press you rather than sitting and absorbing pressure, they're a completely different team. I think the fact that Taremi, he can play anywhere in the front line. Against Wales, he played in a more withdrawn second striker role. They went more 4-4-1-1, and he had a freedom to play with a strike partner, much like he does with FC Porto. This guy can create goals, he can score goals, and for the USMNT, they will have to marshal his movement for 90 minutes. I like that triumvirate between he, Azmoun, and Guladesh. Their movement in transition, they're so dangerous. They move off each other. They look to combine with each other. And I think if they get going early, they could give the USMNT a long day at the office.
Mike, how important is it going to be for, obviously, US men's national team to start to get things going right offensively? Because what we have witnessed right now, pretty solid defensively. And as JJ pointed out there, it surprised a lot of people how solid the USA are defensively. But offensively, which is where I think the USA has their greatest threat, how important is it for them to finally get things going properly for them to get this victory? Because we know that Iran, if they get a clear-cut chance, they could take it and sneak this game.
Well, that's been the one criticism of this U.S. men's national team, has been that offensive output. It's been the half chances. I look at the last game. That was a game that they played well enough to beat the mighty England. And when I say mighty, I'm giving you daggers, JJ, you, Benj, and Nigel. I say that with just spite in my voice, and you know what I mean by that. But those are the half chances that the rest of teams in the World Cup put away. Maybe Qatar excluded, but the rest of teams, when you're one of the underdogs, you're not going to get many sniffs. And against this Iranian team, they do not give up many chances. I think that game against England, I think that was a blip. I think that was because, yes, England played out of their minds on the day, but you cannot underestimate the emotional weight of a lot of the political consequences and what's going on in the country, what it's meant to those players. Those are their families that they're playing for who are suffering right now. And we saw the weight of that in that first game. Completely different Iran team. For the U.S., it's about getting the right mix of who's going to play striker. We've seen Haji Wright being in there. Didn't do enough for me to warrant a start in this next game. Interesting to see if Greg Berhalter goes with Josh Sargent, or does he give Jesus Ferreira? There's been a lot of cry out for Tim Weah to play as a number 9. And JJ, I have a question for you. You've seen him play at Lille. Does Tim Weah, have you seen enough of him playing at that number 9 position? Because when I've seen him play that for the U.S., it hasn't yielded goals. I think his best position is outright on that wing.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I've actually seen more of Tim Weah at right back than I have at number 9 in recent weeks. It was actually quite an interesting experiment from Fonseca at Lille. Obviously, I don't think that helps the USMNT going forward here, but no, I don't think that Tim Weah is really cut out to be a number 9. I think he's better as a second striker, or somebody playing out wide. I mean, the thing is, when he plays out wide, I feel like he has a tendency to drift out of games a little too much. Whereas if he's playing as sort of that second striker, he's involved, but he's not relied upon, to be scoring goals game in, game out. I do think that he needs to become a bit more consistent. But on his day, yes, he can be a goal threat, and certainly up against a team like Iran, I think he could give them some problems. I think the real danger for the USMNT is that Iran start this game the way that they finished the game against Wales. They were absolutely rabid at the end of that game. And, Hennessy had to, stand on his head, make some incredible saves before he then got sent off. But some of the chances Iran were creating in that second half, I feel that Azmoun has really sort of made, them a double threat in attack now alongside Taremi. That's going to be a real challenge for the USMNT to shackle them, to keep them quiet. And I think the best hope for the USMNT is to ride out any sort of early threat from the Iranians, and then to try and hit them on the break. And that's perhaps where Tim Weah, really comes into it, because we know that he has, pace in abundance, and hopefully he can, find his shooting boots as well. I think that all that was really missing from that USMNT performance against England was the finished product. Obviously, McKennie, blazed the best chance over. You saw Pulisic hit the bar as well. On another day, perhaps those opportunities go in. So, I think that there are reasons to feel optimistic for the USMNT. Just absolutely do not underestimate this Iranian side, because if they can pick up where they left off against Wales, then it's going to be a real titanic tussle for the USMNT, certainly that first half of the first half.
Yeah, I think discipline comes into play a lot when it comes to a game like this, because when you're going into basically a knockout game, a knockout tie, Iran recognize that the draw might be good enough for them to go through, and the US recognize they need to win. So desperation is going to creep into play. So it's going to be interesting to see how the referee handles this situation. Before we move on to the England-Wales game, let's get a prediction from you. Michael, give me a scoreline.
I'm going 2-1 USA, late last gasp winner.
JJ.
I'd sign up for that, because it sounds like it would be great entertainment. I am going to go.
Come on, JJ.
Tempted by 1-1. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, Mike. I'll join you on 2-1, but I can see both teams scoring.
Yeah.
That tells you how close it is. JJ, taking his time. It took about a minute there to get a prediction from him, because it is going to be a close game. It's not going to be easy to predict this one.
I'll tell you what, you guys need to erase the ghost of Mardovikia, because I'm pretty sure it was this fixture, wasn't it, in '98 when he scored that goal?
Yeah.
Yes.
Brilliant finish, by the way.
Yeah. I played with Mehdi Mardovikia at Hamburg. He was unbelievable character. Some stories that I could save for maybe the after hour show about Mehdi Mardovikia and how he lived his life. That is for sure. You can tell by the odds that Iran are not a favorite in this game. They were sitting at plus 320 yesterday. The USA were at plus 110. I think they've moved down to plus 100. So the USA are favorites, but still wow, the odds right there tell you that this game is going to be close. Let's turn our attention to Wales against England, or England against Wales, whatever way JJ wants to go with this one. Listen, it should be a blowout victory for England, but Wales, Battle of Britain, they could make it interesting if they get an early goal, sure. But as far as quality goes, England should be far too strong. What are you expecting from England, and what do you want to see from this England performance?
I think England need to rediscover, what we saw from them against Iran. I think the players were playing with a lot more freedom then. Certainly it was very, very strange, that England performance against the USMNT. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the US. I think it was very poorly set up tactically by Southgate, and I know I'm not his biggest fan. I regularly criticize him. I feel that is, the perfect case in point as to why Southgate is very limited as an international manager. I feel like, England are not quite tapping into, their potential just yet. I know we've only had 2 games, but, we saw a glimpse of what the Three Lions can be in that opening game against Iran. Bukayo Saka looking fantastic, Jude Bellingham as well. And then they were all a shadow of themselves in the game against the USMNT. Harry Kane, looking left and right for chances, but I saw him making more meaningful contributions when he got back defending than going forward. So I think for England, Southgate needs to make some really bold calls. He shouldn't feel afraid to throw in certain players as well. People were up in arms about Foden, his lack of use against USMNT. And I'd agree with that. I think that, certain players could have been sent on earlier, Grealish, for example, because, England needed something to shake them up. You could see that it wasn't right even in the first half. That said, I don't have that many worries for England coming into this Wales match. Wales, to me, look like a team at the end of a cycle. I was stunned watching that game against Iran, just how Gareth Bale, Aaron Ramsey, guys who still can play. Not just looking knackered, just looking like passengers. Their team is on the brink. They still could have saved a point at that moment. And it was just like they were waiting for Iran to score. Bale... It's really frustrating because we know he can be a great player on his day. And I almost suspected that the game was set up for him to make his only meaningful contribution by scoring a Wales winner later on. It wasn't to be. And I think that now shows, that Wales just can't rely on Bale for one moment of brilliance. When you've got sort of the supporting cast like Ramsey starting to fail a bit as well. If England were really, really brutal in this game and came out with the bit between their teeth and took all their chances, it could get nasty like we saw in the Iran game. But if it's another loafing England performance like we saw against the USMNT, I can see it being a real board draw.
Ooh, JJ, this is the type of game that I'm really looking to see what sort of England team do we really have. Yes. Everyone was screaming from the British Isles, it's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming home. And I wasn't quite so convinced because of how bad Iran were and how weighted down Iran were in that second half. I thought that was more of a true performance and true litmus test of where that game really was if you took the political implications out of it. This is an England team that I think Gareth Southgate, if he wants to give the biggest gift to every other team at this FIFA World Cup, that's keeping Phil Foden on the bench. Phil Foden's one of your best players in that England team. He's better than Mason Mount. I don't care who thinks differently. If they do, they should go watch golf. It's a great game. You know nothing about soccer. Phil Foden, Marcus Rashford, Jack Grealish. Give these boys a chance. Bring them on earlier. I think it's a bit too reactive. If this same lineup goes, Raheem Sterling should not be in the starting 11. Don't care what people say about that. I think he's a great humanitarian. I think he's been a great ambassador for England. He's just not in the best of forms. Mm-hmm. Sir, Gareth Southgate needs to start making a decision. Is he more worried about what the media are going to say, or is he going to actually put the bit between his teeth to make the decisions to help this England team win? If England put the performance I think they're capable of, then they will make a believer out of me and the rest of this world to go to the knockout round and really make the noise that I think they could make and the rest of the British Isles think they could make.
Big Hairy Jake jumping in with the comments right now saying England is playing France in a week. In all likelihood, they shouldn't need Kane to draw against Wales, especially if he's got a knock. At the end of the day, Harry Kane has not scored a goal here, JJ. Why has he not scored a goal here? What is the problem with Harry Kane in this World Cup so far? Is it just the fact that he's maybe not taking the chances created for him? Is he not getting in the right positions? Or is it only a matter of time before he does find the back of the net? Or maybe it's the pressure of the all-time England goal-scoring record that's on his shoulders.
Or maybe it's the fact that he's gassed. I mean, we talked about this before coming into the tournament, how tired he looked. And, I find it really, really difficult, to see that Southgate, wouldn't have, noticed that, especially after that Iran game, perhaps giving him a breather. I mean, I know he plays a hugely important role for the team, but at some point, you need to give him a breather almost, to make sure that, he can last the duration of this tournament. I mean, I know it's easier said than done, but, if you manage his minutes, maybe look to bring him off as soon as you sort of hit the hour mark, something that, Southgate really doesn't, look to do. His substitutions are either reactive, or come too late in the game to, make any meaningful impact, both for the player coming on as the player coming off. I really, really think that, if Southgate had handled this slightly differently, I don't think Kane would look as knackered as he is at this moment in time. And I'm not saying that that's the only reason, but I think it's a significant factor because Kane is playing in a Spurs team, being run into the ground by Antonio Conte. That situation is not going to get any more forgiving for him post World Cup. So I think that Southgate should have probably been aware of that coming into it and, maybe looked, to perhaps try and save an hour between the first two games and only playing him up until the 60-minute mark and then bringing him off for the remaining 30. And the fact that he hasn't done that, I think it's inevitable that Kane, is going to continue to look, like he's, sort of blowing out of his rear end. And, I think, there is a high risk now that Kane, in trying to get himself that crucial goal, to break his duck at this tournament, maybe, overexerts himself and potentially injures himself. That is certainly a worry that England have to be wary of.
Yeah, that would be disaster central for the English national team. Harry Kane, when you look at the goals he scored for Tottenham, and yes, with under Mourinho, it was that him quarterbacking and being playmaker, almost what we saw with Wayne Rooney later on in his career. But when you look at what he does, when he's scoring goals and he's in a vein of form, it's wide service. When Kulusevski for Tottenham comes in, he's the only player that picks up his head and serves the ball in. Harry Kane's a player who needs service. For England, if he's going to thrive, when they played the back three system with the two wing backs, it made it more predictable that service was going to come in. And his movement in the box is first class. It's world class. It's what he does so well, is getting on the end of it, whether it's with a volley or a cushion finish or a header. With this England team, they have two great crossers on the ball. Kieran Trippier getting in wide areas and serving balls in. Luke Shaw getting more services in. I think that's what they need. I think they also would benefit if they're going to get Kane going, getting the likes of a Jack Grealish, because Grealish, he can come inside on his right foot, but he also can go to the end line and get little chip crosses in for the likes of Kane.
Couple of nice comments coming in here. Vic saying, this one directed at you, Mike. Don't mud on money, Mace, please. But I do agree with you. Foden should start. Matthew Stuka jumping in here saying, keeping Foden on the bench is very similar to keeping Gio Reyna on the bench. Very, very strange. Obviously, interesting comments coming out recently from my good friend Eric Winaldo, who apparently had a conversation with Claudio Reyna regarding Gio Reyna and a bit of a falling out when it comes to Greg Berhalter and the situation. But no doubt about it. That is it. Give me a quick prediction before we head to break here. Wales against England. Michael Hood, I'm coming to you.
I'm going 2-0 England.
Jay.
Yeah, sounds about right. I'd say 2 or 3. 3, why not?
I think we're going to see a big performance from England today. Yeah. I'm going for 4+ goals from England in this performance today because Wales are absolutely shocking. And I've actually put money on them, JJ, unfortunately for you, to finish bottom of this league. So I hope they finish bottom of the league so I can make some money. All right, we're going to take a quick break. More to come from us when we come back. We are going to check in with the legendary Fabrizio Romano and get set for kickoff with USA and Iran lineups out shortly. You're watching House of Champions.
Don't stop watching. Christian Pulisic.
Outstanding from the American.
All skill, all class, and all American at work across the pond.
Pulisic finds the net.
The UEFA Champions League. Stream Chelsea matches live February on Paramount+.
If you're an American soccer fan that follows Stars and Stripes, make sure to check out another great pod in the CBS Sports podcast family. In Soccer We Trust, former US men's national team stars Jimmy Conrad, Heath Pearson, Charlie Davies are previewing and reacting to every US match with a perspective that only they can offer. Download and subscribe to the In Soccer We Trust podcast anywhere you found this one. Welcome back. You're watching House of Champions, and guess who's with us? There he is, the man himself, Fabrizio Romano. Fab, how you doing, buddy?
Ciao guys, all good, all good. Nice to see you. Big pleasure to be here.
I knew you were busy yesterday. I saw the tweets going out at rapid pace talking about Juventus Football Club. Yesterday, the news broke about the Juventus board. Tell us exactly what happened and tell us where Juventus go from here.
Yes, there is still big confusion here in Italy on this Juventus story, but it's important to clarify that yesterday night, an official statement, Juventus confirmed that the whole board, including the president, Andrea Agnelli, the vice president, the legend of Juventus, Pavel Nedved, and all the people into the board decided to resign following the meeting they had in the afternoon. It was a really tense meeting. The situation was really tense around Juventus. And it's about the balance. It's about many problems they had with the balance in the last few months. And so they decided to resign because they were not able to approve the balance. So now they nominated new people into the board, and they are still in the process to nominate new people into the board. It means new president, new vice president, but also a new technical structure. It means that only the CEO, Maurizio Arrivabene, is staying at Juventus until they complete this process, and then they will have a new director of football, new president, new vice president. So everything is changing at Juventus. The last news we have a few minutes ago is from John Elkann, Juventus owner, who stated that Massimiliano Allegri, the manager, is going to stay. He said, we trust him. He's going to be part of our project. We want to win with Allegri as a manager. I want to add that it's also because of financial reasons, of course, because his salary is really important. And so in this moment, Juventus can't go with a different manager. And so Allegri is staying, but the whole Juventus board have resigned. And so it's a big revolution at Juventus.
Yeah, Fab, it's crazy for me to tune into Twitter last night and to see all of that happening. Is there is realistic? What does this mean for Juventus in January? Does it mean that they might look to sell some players, move them on? We know that there are some players coming out of contract as well at the end of the season. What is most likely to be the first course of action for Juve? Because like you said, sacking Allegri at this moment in time, it's a non-starter for financial reasons alone.
Yes, exactly. And for January, we had, until few weeks ago, a lot of rumors of important players linked to Juventus, like Sergei Milinkovic-Savic and many others. And we always say also here, this is not the case. They are not going to sign players for 80, 70 million euros in January. And so I think they will go for a fullback as a priority. There were rumors of Rick Karsdorp, who had a big fight with Jose Mourinho at Roma. So they're looking for a new fullback. But for players who can leave Juventus, I would keep an eye on Weston McKennie, who is doing well at the World Cup and has always been linked with Tottenham or with Premier League clubs. At the moment, there are no negotiations ongoing with Tottenham, but Premier League clubs are always keeping an eye on McKennie, and so it could be a possibility.
Did you just slip up there? Did you just give us a nugget about Weston McKennie going to Tottenham? Come on, Fabrizio.
No, I didn't say that.
There we go.
No, but it's a possibility.
Premier League seems like a real possibility, right?
Yes, this is a possibility. This is a possibility because McKennie, also with Paul Pogba returning, and he will be available, and they have Adrien Rabiot, who's doing great. McKennie is not longer going to be a key player for Juventus, and so there is a chance for him to leave in January. I don't see big names like Dusan Vlahovic or this kind of players leaving in January. I think Juventus will try to keep the same squad until the end of the season, and then they hope to be in the Champions League, and so to be able to change the squad in the summer. But in January, I think McKennie is one of the players who have a chance to leave. Many others no.
Fab, with this coming during the World Cup and Juventus, the run they were really on, and a good run for them right before the World Cup break, how is this being received by rival clubs and the rest of Serie A? Because this can be disruptive, but also it could be a catalyst for change at the club.
Yeah, it's a big shock. It's a big shock, and as you mentioned, the moment is really strange because Juventus were doing very well before the international break, before the World Cup break. So they had a really difficult first part of the season, but then in November they were looking good. They had some important win also with Lazio in the final game of 2022. So the approach from the players was completely different. Federico Chiesa back, Paul Pogba back in January. So the feeling was really positive, and now is a big shock. I think it's a really positive news for Napoli, because Napoli are dominating the Serie A, doing great in Champions League. But we know that when Juventus are there, it's always a big problem for clubs like Napoli, Inter Milan. Juventus is always Juventus, their history, and they are always putting pressure on the other teams. Now, with Juventus in this kind of situation, I think is a really good news for Napoli. They are really relaxed. They are doing very well. They have no injured players. And so Napoli are still the big favorites to win the Serie A. But Massimiliano Allegri knows how to be always in the competition. So it's a big shock, but I'm sure that Juventus will be there.
Kind of sticking with Juventus, but moving one eye towards the French national team. Adrien Rabiot's future has been the subject of some speculation. He's actually really impressed me so far at the World Cup, been a key player for Les Bleus so far. And also somebody else who's part of the French squad, doesn't have as important a role as him, or at least not yet, is Marcus Thuram. He's also been linked with clubs ahead of January. Is there anything you can tell us on those two and their potential futures, Fab?
Yes, for Marcus Thuram is a big opportunity because I'm told he's not going to extend the contract with Borussia Mönchengladbach. He has a new agent. He decided to change in August, so the plan is pretty clear. He wants to change and to try a new opportunity. It's true that Bayern are tracking him, but at the moment there are no advanced negotiation with the player. And in Italy, it's true that Inter are really appreciating him. Imagine that Marcus Thuram was one of the priority targets for Inter before the injury. Then he got injured, and so the deal collapsed between Inter and Borussia Mönchengladbach. So they are still keeping an eye on Marcus Thuram, but it depends on the outgoings, if Joaquin Correa will leave the club in January or not. So Marcus Thuram, I think he has a chance to leave in January or in the summer as free agent. In that case, for January move, 10 million euros are needed. This is the price tag by Borussia Mönchengladbach for Marcus Thuram. And then Adrien Rabiot, as you said, he's doing great at the World Cup, but also in Serie A with Juventus and also in the Champions League. He's been probably the best player of Juventus in this first part of the season. And this is really surprising because last summer he was one step away from leaving Juventus. It was really advanced a deal with Manchester United. The negotiation was almost completed between clubs. And then the player was not so convinced about Man United. So he decided to turn down their proposal. Now he's out of contract. There are no advanced negotiations yet between Juventus and Rabiot to extend the contract. So I would not be surprised if at the end is going to be a free agent in the summer with many clubs interested. A lot of rumors about Chelsea, but I'm told there is still nothing concrete, still nothing advanced. The player wants to focus on the World Cup, and then in January we'll see. But I see Rabiot staying at Juventus till the end of the season and then deciding extending the contract or leave on a free.
What a fantastic question, JJ. And Rabiot's been one of the most exciting players to watch in this World Cup. Really, certainly putting himself in that shop window if he does want to get that big money move. And I'll just tell you this one. I interviewed and hung out with Marcus Thuram for a short period of time while I was in Gladbach. That guy is freaking crazy, man. He is so confident. He is just on another planet. He knows he's good. He knows he can be even better than what Borussia Gladbach can bring him. So I'm really excited, Fabrizio, for when we do get that. Here we go with Marcus Thuram to where he goes. Let's turn our attention to another player that's really caught all of our attention. Cody Gakpo, once again on the score sheet today, Fabrizio. He has scored 3 goals in the World Cup. He scored every single game. He scored a left-footed goal, a right-footed goal, and one with his head. This guy is on fire right now. He's playing at PSV. But what does the future really look like for a player like him who's doing so well in the World Cup stage?
Yes, the original plan was for a summer move, but now with this World Cup, I think there are very good chances for a January move for Cody Gakpo. His summer was crazy. His summer was crazy because beginning of August, many meetings with Manchester United. He shares the same agents of Erik ten Hag. And so, the relationship is very good with Man United, of course. And this is why Man United were interested. They had meetings with PSV at the beginning of August, but then nothing happened because they decided to invest big money on Antony. So nothing happened with Gakpo. But in the final hours of the transfer window, the summer transfer window, Southampton and Leeds were in a battle to sign Cody Gakpo. Leeds had a private flight to bring him to England, have his medical, and sign the contract on deadline day. And then was Louis van Gaal who called the player, who called the agents and said, wait a bit, do this World Cup as PSV player and then move maybe in January or in the summer. So Louis van Gaal changed the story of Cody Gakpo, and then at the end probably was a good decision. And now Leeds would dream to sign Gakpo, but it's almost impossible because there are many important clubs jumping in. So English clubs, Liverpool sent their scouts multiple times to follow this player. Manchester United are still there. I mentioned the relationship with his agents, and they are still in direct contact with his agents. So I would not be surprised if Man United will return for Cody Gakpo in the next days or weeks because they are really tempted by this player. And then we have to see how much PSV will ask, because in the summer they wanted 50 million euros package for Cody Gakpo. So it was around 40, 42 plus add-ons. But now I think with this World Cup is going to be way more than this. So everything is open, but keep an eye on Gakpo in January because I think there is a good chance for him to move in January.
Yeah, Fab. I just want to touch on a player who, speaking of young players who lit it up at this World Cup, love my African players, a player that just you cannot not talk about when you talk about Africa and Champions League and Europe right now. Ajax's Mohamed Kudus. What does the future hold for him, given what he's done for the Dutch club and for Ghana at this World Cup?
Yes, he's doing great, and I agree with you. He's great player and also great professional. It was not easy for him to stay at Ajax in the summer because Everton were really close to signing him. The negotiation was really advanced in the summer, and then it collapsed because Ajax already lost many important players. We know how many players they lost: Onana, Mazraoui, Lisandro Martinez, Gravenberg, a lot of players, important players in the summer, and of course Anthony, who joined Manchester United. So this is why they decided to keep Kudus, and was not easy for the player to say no to an important move to Premier League side like Everton. But now the price tag is way more than 35 million. In summer was around 35, 37. Now it's way more than this, I think more than 50. And in January, because of Ajax situation, they would love to keep the player at least until the end of the season and maybe sell him in the summer. I would keep an eye on Liverpool because it's true that they sent their scouts to monitor this player. So Liverpool are keeping an eye on Kudus, but it's still not a direct negotiation with Ajax. And I think Premier League is going to be his future. I don't know if it's going to be Liverpool or another club at the end, but Premier League clubs are following this player. He would love to play in Premier League one day. And so I think he's a very good chance. He has a very good chance to play there one day.
Yeah, and just one last question from me, Fab. Obviously, Kylian Mbappe never far from the headlines, whether it's been positive or negative the last couple of months. Nasser Al-Khelaifi has been speaking about his future now, reiterating obviously that because Mbappe is under contract, that he's going nowhere. Is that what you're hearing? That's going to be an end to all of the Mbappe rumors? I mean, obviously he's one of the players excelling at the World Cup at this moment in time with his goals for France so far, but I don't think there's ever been a moment maybe in the last 2 years where we haven't been talking much about this guy.
It's true. He's always in the rumor, and I think it's normal. He's a superstar, and so the situation is clear that in January he's not going to leave. For PSG, it was already clear when the situation was tense, because it's true that almost 2 months ago the situation was tense between Kylian Mbappe and Paris Saint-Germain. He was not so happy. You know better than me that in the summer PSG had very clear plans. They wanted to sign kind of center striker. Okay, Kitika is a talented player, but he's for the future. So they wanted a top center striker, and they were not able to complete the negotiation. And also Luis Campos, the director, always mentioning the center back they wanted. Milan Skriniar, long negotiation with Inter, and then nothing happened. So it was not an easy summer for PSG on the market, and also this is why Kylian Mbappe was not super excited like end of September, beginning of October. But now it looks different. Paris Saint-Germain were very clear with the player. They have no intention to open negotiations to let him go in January, so Mbappe will complete the season with PSG. And then in the summer, we will see. I think when you are Paris Saint-Germain, when you are going to compete to win the Champions League as an obsession, this is normal to wait a bit and then see what happens. It's about the manager Galtier, it's about Luis Campos, it's about the whole PSG structure. So we have to wait a bit, but in January, nothing is going to happen, as Nasser Al-Khelaifi mentioned. And also Luis Campos, the plan is to keep the player 100%.
Fab, last question for me. Watching this World Cup, and I'm a bit biased here, USMNT, got to ask for our fans, for my own well-being so I can sleep at night. The World Cup and the USMNT, this has been a positive start for them. What does the future hold? And in general, what does the lay of the land look like for some of these players moving forward with the January window around the corner?
Yes, I think there will be some opportunities for some of the players, some in January, some in the summer. For example, I was speaking to some agents a few days ago, and for example, a player like Yunus Musa is really appreciated by many important clubs around Europe. In Italy, we have rumors about Inter, but also in England. Musa is a very important player, and so I think in the summer he will have a chance to get his move. But there are players we have to monitor in January, like Pulisic, because we know that the situation with Chelsea is still open. Chelsea didn't want to open for any loan move in the summer. When Newcastle approached them, Manchester United, we also have rumors. But at the moment, their intention is still the same. Keep the player or sell the player for an important bid. And at the moment, there is still no important bid on the table. So I think the World Cup is always a big opportunity to show your skills, as it happened with Cody Gakpo, who we mentioned before. You have a big opportunity also to have this chance to join other different clubs, but at the moment everything is still quiet also for Pulisic. So I think in few weeks, second week of December, I think we will really enter into the market and we will understand what's going to happen.
Fabrizio Romano, you are simply the best. We love you. We appreciate you. Make sure everybody out there goes and follows Fabrizio on his social media platform. Breaking news left, right, and center. We're going to let you go and enjoy the games today. We're also going to say goodbye to JJ because he's got to get to the pub to go and enjoy the games. I hope England lose to Wales today. JJ, Fabrizio, before you go.
What about me? Am I not the greatest?
No. JJ.
Look at this recency bias.
Listen. Until England win and you get that trophy from Fabrizio, you're not the greatest just yet, okay? He's called Golden Balls for a reason. Fabrizio, give me a score prediction on the US national team against Iran before we let you go.
US winning 1-0.
Thank
There we
you.
go,
That's all
Fab.
we need to
There
go.
we
You
go,
can
Fab.
leave now, Fabrizio. Love you, Fab. Love you, JJ. Enjoy the games, brother. Enjoy the pub, and we'll see you soon. You are
guys.
the greatest, by the way. We love you.
Yeah, nah, JJ, enjoy. The bombardier.
All right, Mike, let's get into it. I mean, some of
Yeah.
the team news has broken here. We do have a look at the U.S. national team. It looks like Cameron Carter-Vickers is in for Zimmerman in the starting lineup. Sargent is in for Hadji Wright in the starting 11. So I've got Matt Turner, Serginho Dest, Tyler Adams, Anthony Robinson, Yunus Musa, Weston McKennie, Christian Pulisic, Tim Ream, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Tim Weah, and Josh Sargent. Let me get your reaction to that lineup. That's an interesting change right there, Cameron Carter-Vickers coming in.
Yeah, this is a change that I was lobbying for and would have wanted to see in that England match. Cameron Carter-Vickers playing for Celtic and Champions League tested, Scottish Premier League proven, and you cover the SPL. I thought he had a very good season last year, scored that massive goal in the Old Firm Derby. So he has big game experience. This will be the biggest game of his career at a FIFA World Cup, but also coming in a bit cold. We've seen previous USMNT defenders come in cold at a World Cup and get their nod in a big moment. Our very own Jimmy Conrad against Italy is a fine prime example of that. I just wonder, though, up top, this was the game that I was hoping to see a bit more adventure, the likes of a Gio Reyna or Brendan Aronson. I would have liked to see Brendan Aronson in this lineup. I think he could be the difference for the U.S. in the final third that they're looking for.
Okay, give me a prediction now you've seen the lineup here. What do you think the score? Will it change your prediction in any way? Does it change the way that you think these boys are going to attack the game? Do you think they're maybe being a bit more defensive-minded? Yeah. I do like the fact that Cameron Carter-Vickers is playing. And as you pointed out, played very well for Celtic, obviously on a championship run last year. In my opinion, he was the best player in the Scottish League last year, committing long-term to Celtic and now really playing with confidence. What he does well is he gets the ball, he's confident in possession of the ball, and he runs right through the heart of that midfield, basically opening up the games. He is very, very good in possession of the ball. I think Zimmerman's not that player. So I think they know they're going to have a lot of the ball here, and they know defensively they've got to move the ball quickly. They've got to move it the right way.
Yeah, I agree with that analysis. I think with Walker Zimmerman, what you do get that Carter-Vickers is good on set pieces as well. I think Zimmerman gives you a bit more defensively on set pieces, a lot of clearances off of set pieces. But with that partnership with Tim Ream, I think there's more of an understanding. Two players who play in the UK who have more of an understanding of how to manage big game experiences. Tim Ream is a captain for Fulham, doing very well, having an amazing season. I think their leadership in the back line is going to be paramount to stifle the likes of Taremi for Iran. Transition is going to be where Iran is dangerous and potent. We've seen that in the two games going into this match for that back two and really the entire back four. We know both outside backs love to bomb forward. I think their communication with the likes of Tyler Adams, those three, they're going to be paramount for the USMNT on defensive transition. But in attack, though, I just wonder, at what point does berhalter bring on the likes of Gio Reyna and Brendan Aronson? Is it in the 70th minute or is it in the 60th minute? That impetus and onus on when to go for it and just say, hey, we're going to push the pedal to the metal. I just hope it's not too late and more of reactive subs than proactive from berhalter.
Oh, fantastic stuff, Mike. I really appreciate your honesty when it comes to this US national team. I think I can see your passion all the way through because we want this team to do so well. We clearly see its interest in the team selection, as is for the England game against Wales. The England team is out. Jordan Pickford, Kyle Walker, Luke Shaw, Declan Rice, John Stones, Harry Maguire, Jordan Henderson, Harry Kane is in. He captains the team. Marcus Rashford is in. And you'll like this one, Michael Lahoud. Phil Foden starts alongside Jude Bellingham. Also, it looks like Jude Bellingham's going to play a bit more advanced today. Thoughts on the lineup from England today? That should be too strong for Wales.
I like this lineup. They've got pace, they've got creativity, and it allow Harry Kane, who we talked about, to stay higher forward. I thought Jordan Henderson, and we touched on this after the U.S.-England game, I thought he brought a bit more aggression, a bit more forward thinking, a bit more passion that we're used to seeing from him when he plays for Liverpool and when he's at his best. He will have to play just that. He will have to be a midfield general for this English national team and get the likes of a young Phil Foden, get the ball forward fast to your front three to really create in the final third.
Mike, I think everybody's logged off. They're probably getting ready for kickoffs now, so it's probably time for me and you to go. Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate you and everything you do for House of Champions. Thanks to everybody out there for listening to House of Champions. Please make sure you take a minute to leave us a rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere else you listen to your podcast. Also available as videos, so subscribe to us on YouTube. We're back at it again later on at 4 p.m. Eastern, post-USA game, post-USA victory. Let's go, boys. Let's get this job done. We'll see you then.